Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. What does it look like to never give up on your dreams? Look no further than today's guest, endurance swimmer and total badass Diana Nyad. At age 64, Diana inspired the world by becoming the first person to swim the 110.86 miles from Cuba to Florida without a shark tank, accomplishing the Mount Everest of swims. It was a dream 35 years in the making, and accomplished only after 4 crushing failed attempts. The swim itself took just under 53 hours to complete. Diana recounts the journey in her memoir, Find a Way, and this fall, Netflix brings her story to the screen in a feature film, Nyad, starring Annette and Jodie Foster. In our conversation today, Diana opens up about what it means to pursue a dream with unwavering commitment. Face your fears, and live each day with no regrets. And that she has. You do not want to miss this conversation. Here we go. This is my conversation with the one and only Diana Nyad. Diana, what about your story do you think people resonate with the most? Your story is incredible. What do you think they resonate with the most?
You know what's odd? It's an eccentric, extreme story, at least the swimming part. And actually, my whole life story is extreme. But oddly enough, even though nobody else that listens to me or reads about me is going to swim from Cuba to Florida, probably, nobody else is going to dive in and do 1,000 burpees for their workouts. But somehow, people, as we do when we hear life stories, they extrapolate what they want for their own lives, that they would choose something big so that they wouldn't be afraid of failure, that they would be gratified by the journey of where they're going, even if they never reach the destination, that they don't want to leave their potential untapped. And I think those are the elements, even if it's a person who was always going to write their novel and life got busy and they had kids and and then they get to be 65 and they say, you know what? I heard that Nyad story. I don't know if I'll ever get it published, but I'm not going to my grave without writing that novel. I promised myself I would. So that means the world to me. It's way beyond sports, my story.
I love that about the way that you talk about it. It was much more than swimming. I am curious, though, what was the meaning behind the choice relevant to Cuba to Florida? There was a lot of places, 4/5 of the world is water, right? What made you pick that swim?
Number one, it was personal. A lot of people, choose their long distance, extreme adventures because of something that it meant to them as a child. I've heard people who want to trek across Antarctica because the most important book they ever read was Endurance, about the Shackleton survival there way back in the early part of the last century. For me, I was born in New York and I wound up in New York years later, and I feel in my heart a New Yorker. But the truth is, from second grade through high school, I was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I was there. I was 9 years old when the Cuban Revolution broke out, and literally overnight, in 24 hours, thousands of Cubans emigrated with nothing. And they came over to Miami, right, to Fort Lauderdale. And so that island that we already knew, my parents had gone and danced at the Hotel Nacional. If you were from South Florida, you knew a lot about Cuba. But now, in one day, we were all living with and making friends with and eating dinner with and dancing salsa with Cubans. So that island, that forbidden island, became a real, source of magic to me. I stood on a beach in Fort Lauderdale. I remember the exact place on the exact beach. And I said to my Mom, I know Cuba is out there. Where is it? I thought I could see it. It's so close. She said, well, it's just across the horizon right here. And the truth is, it's just over the horizon, but it is that close. And you little champion swimmer, you could actually swim there. And I'm telling you, Molly, at age 9, that phrase went somewhere into the back of my head. And then it's part of the sport. You're right. The earth is 4/5 water. And we all know the famous swims, the Hellespont, as the English Channel, et cetera. But for me, the famous swim, and good swimmers have tried it, was Cuba to Florida. And it had to do with those two nations. I think honestly, the biggest public honor I've ever had was being invited by President Obama, whom I admire terribly, to the White House, to the Oval Office, to just sit with him and chat about life and chasing goals. And he said to me, you just showed the world that our countries are not that far apart, that we could get to a place where we can finally reconcile and we can be friends, and the Cubans can come here at will and we can go there at will. You showed us. And so, you braved the sharks and the jellyfish. Well, surely we can come together.
You made that first attempt at 28, right? So, and then you didn't attempt it again for 3 decades. During that time, you weren't really swimming a lot, right, inside of that window. And I'm curious, what made you sort of put that dream on the shelf during that time?
Well, I'll tell you why I put it on the shelf, and I'll tell you why I dragged it back off the shelf 30 years later, is that I was 28, and then at 29, I did swim from the Bahamas to Florida. At 30, I was putting together the Cuba expedition again. But it's a tough weather climate situation down there. If you and I could look at a map together, I would show you all the different variables that affect you from the jet stream up in the air stream up in North America. If it sits too low, you've got a low pressure system that makes for storms. If you look at where the Gulf Stream flows, right at the Yucatan Channel, it comes screeching across between Cuba and Florida. It's about 80 miles wide, which means you're in it the whole time you're trying to go north while it's going east, and it's going 3 times your speed. So you've got to have a lot of logistical planning with the winds, with the current, and the years go by and you don't get your chance. I have sat over in Cuba for an entire summer, Key West in Cuba, every day looking at the winds, worried. One day, our navigator, John Bartlett, while we were waiting, maddeningly, he brought us down to the docks and he said, everybody, put your tongues out. So the whole team, we're all standing over the docks with our tongues hanging out like that. And he said, what do you feel? What do you sense? And we all were like, well, it's so crunchy. It's the salt. It's the salt in the air from the sea vapor. He said, no, it isn't. We call it the Sahara dust. Those are particles of sand from the Sahara desert that have blown 7,000 miles across. So every day, the trade winds usually in that area come from east to west, and the Gulf Stream is going from west to east. So those two currents, land and sea, bump up against each other. And here I was 30, wanting to do it again, got bashed out of trying it for the year, couldn't get the weather window, and I'm broke, and I'm getting offers by the wide world of sports to be an announcer. And I just thought, this is it. It's time for me to retire and leave my beautiful Cuba dream behind. And then at age 60, and I'm not going to complain, Molly, you've been involved in the sportscasting and the sports agent and all that business at the deep level. It's pretty exciting to be a young person traveling around from the Tour de France to Wimbledon Games to the Ironman to the New York Marathon. I was honored to cover all those athletes and follow their pursuits of excellence. But the truth is, at age 60, I was feeling like a spectator. I was on the sidelines with a microphone. I wasn't the doer anymore. And I just easily gave it all up in a heartbeat, gave up the money, gave up the travel, gave up the whole thing and said, I want to go back and be everything I can be. And that Cuba swim is what makes me be everything I can be most.
Inside of that window of time when you parked it, And you were doing something you loved. But then when you at 60 said, I'm going to do this, right? At some level, was it the drive to do it, or was it a part of a calling and a bigger purpose that made you want to do it?
It's both of those. I told you about my background as a kid in Florida, and that little magical phrase floating around. What? You could swim from Cuba to Florida? What? So that was always there. And then in my 20s, which were the 1970s, I did a lot of swims around the world. There are a lot of great swimmers, and we're all every day going out to try to swim around Manhattan Island and Catalina Channel, and you can name them. And I was in that sport and proud to be in that sport. But I think there was a bigger is a good phrase, but calling isn't quite the word for me. I'm an atheist, and I sort of, as much as I respect all religions, all faiths, for me, I don't feel a calling, so to speak, because it kind of intimates that you're, a religious tinge to it for me anyway.
Faith-centric, right.
Yeah, but I had, when I was feeling all that, malaise of being a spectator, coming up to age 60, 3 things happened. My mom died. She was 82. And I thought, I've been in great shape every day of my life, but could it be genetically that I only have 22 years to live? I thought, I don't want to be a spectator anymore. The second thing was Chris Reeve. I was not a close friend with Christopher Reeve, but we had come across each other a few times at a couple of events. He had had his accident, falling off his horse. He was living his life as a quadriplegic. And Chris, evidently, from the times I was with him, was very big on regrets. If he met you, Molly, did you know him at all?
I didn't. No, I did not.
Okay, but if he met you, in my experience with him, he would ask you very quickly, what are your dreams? What did and don't take for granted that you may not slip on some banana peel tonight and never got to chase that dream. So he scared me when he talked like that. I thought, I better not just sort of casually go around the world saying, hey, isn't it a beautiful day for the World Table Tennis Championships? I want something deeper and bigger. And then at that same time, I reread 1,000 times, it must have been, while I was that month turning 60, Mary Oliver's poem, A Summer's Day, The Summer's Day. And in that poem, the last 2 lines are, tell me, what is it you plan to do with this one wild and precious life of yours? So whatever your religious thoughts are, we have pretty much all of us agree that you only have one life on this earth, and it's precious. And what you do with it is your decision. So when the Christopher Reeve, my mom dying, reading Mary Oliver, that's what just got me easily moving forward toward this dream.
Well, and what's so amazing is there's so many risks, so many obstacles, Diana, and you've talked about it in attempting to do something like what you did. What were the main risks, right? What were some of the main risks in attempting what you, in fact, achieved?
Well, if you had talked to me back when I first tried it, 1978, or talked to me in 2010 when I was getting ready at age 60 to get back in shape and try it again, I would have given you the whole list of, the Gulf Stream that we just talked about and how difficult that is to navigate across, because it's a very fine landing point. Again, if you take out the map, and Cuba, Havana is down here, and up here is Key West. As you're trying to swim that 100+ miles, there's no other landing point. If you miss it and get pushed out in the Gulf of Mexico, you're going toward Brownsville, Texas, some 800,000 miles away. If you miss it this way, then you're going out east into the Atlantic Ocean. So to get across that big, fast current and have a navigator every 15 or so minutes change your direction, change your, it's a tricky technical swim, along with the endurance of lasting that many hours. On paper, it's going to be 2 to 3 nonstop days of swimming in a big ocean, not just a pool. So there was all that. But I didn't know yet about the box jellyfish. Because I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating. I would rather dive into an ocean way out 50, 60 miles offshore and have an oceanic white tip, maybe a 12-foot shark come at me, even with no protection if I was just on holiday. And I would rather have that shark come at me and believe that it doesn't really want to attack me, and I'd get a knuckle ready that if I had to, I'd punch him in his sensitive snout. I'd rather see that shark than a little 1-inch cube of a box jellyfish. Many people have died when they've been touched by that tentacle. I should have died that night in 2011. And that is a terrifying pain and a terrifying experience. So that by far, when you say to me, what's the list of the things that happen out there? I said, let's not even talk about the rest of them. Just put the box jellyfish at the top.
I mean, it's a sensory deprivation experience, swimming, right? And intense solitude, right? Mindset. Are you focusing your thoughts on certain things? Get me inside of your mindset, your thinking, the rhythm around that? Or do you let your mind wander? How do you get your mind in the right place? Because the mind is obviously so powerful inside of this journey for you.
No, it's a great question, actually, because we can all imagine what you've got to do for the body. We know sports. What would you have to do endurance-wise to get the shoulders and the abs and the whole body ready to swim for, as this swim was, 52 hours and 54 minutes? What would you have to do? So we can all picture how many hours you'd put in rough seas and, how many years you would do that for. But what the mind is going through, and I have huge respect for all of the great endurance adventurers on planet Earth. Molly, I've read all the K2, Annapurna, Everest stories, and I'm just enthralled with people who are willing to go to those lengths, the cross-country ski across Antarctica, I'm just fascinated. And they all face different things. Clearly, there's altitude, there's cold, there's heat, extreme heat. But for me in the swimming, besides the actual dealing with the ocean, which is never like glass, you're dealing with some waves out there. What you're really dealing with is, you use the phrase, sensory deprivation. So picture, if you and I we're going to sit right here with each other during your podcast, and we have enough water and some things to eat around, but we're not going to talk to anybody else. We're just going to sit here for 52 hours and 54 minutes and not talk to each other. So, very quickly, you're going to be off into is the next meal I'm going to make, or, I got to make up with my friend that we didn't leave that well, or whatnot. And then very quickly after that, and we're not exhausted, we're not, putting out tremendous amounts of calories, and the body isn't under duress, you're going to be going into actual dreamlike states. If you can't fall asleep for those 53 hours, you're going to be, cycling through your childhood and things you can't control. So I'm out there and I'm counting and I'm breathing to the left 53 times a minute like this. And I see Bonnie, my head trainer, my best friend Bonnie, she's on the boat right there. But I'm going into automation. That stroke has been there for years and it's ground in, but I'm going into, Right. So all of a sudden I'm with Stephen Hawking, and this majesty of the universe, and the stars that I see at night aren't really there. The light is coming from billions of years ago to us. So, you're tripping out. And the way I kept under control was the counting, a long series of goals, and the singing. So I might be out at night singing, Neil Young, I hear you knocking at my cellar door.
Look at you go.
I love you, baby. Can you have some more? Ooh, the damage done. And that Neil Young falsetto voice just gets me through the night. So I might sing the damage done, 1,000 times. The whole song. That might, I forget the timing of that one, but that might take me 8, 9, 10 hours to sing the entire song, but I'm in it. When I get to number 553 and I've had the last note, I start again. I hear you knocking at my cellar door. So that's how I got through it all. is singing and counting and just keeping myself somehow here. I'm in it. And no matter what pain, no matter what surprise, tropical storm bumps up and we're in 8-foot seas, I'm in this head, no matter what's happening around me.
And I would imagine that was the linchpin to your ability to do what you did. The mindset component of what you have done was everything at some level, wasn't it, Diana? I mean, you had a team and you had a lot of things, but if your mind was not committed to the games it needed to play with itself at some level, do you think you could have made it through that?
Well, it's everything. You've got to have the physical, no stone unturned. If Bonnie and I were in St. Martin, which is our training camp down in the Caribbean, if we set out to do a 14-hour day, and by the way, who is holding us accountable to that 14-hour day? We are. Nobody else knows about it. Nobody else cares if we do 13 hours and 58 minutes. So occasionally that would happen. I'd be coming in, Bonnie would blow the whistle. That 14 hours, it was a rough day. It started at 2:00 in the morning. And so I'm coming in toward the boat and Bonnie stops me because she knows me. She knows me that if you start making concessions, you're going to make the next concession and then bigger concessions. So I'd come into the boat and she would stop me and she would say, I'm so sorry, my bad. But it's only 13 hours and 58 minutes. Turn around, swim a minute out. I'll blow the whistle. You'll swim a minute in and you'll get 14 hours. So it starts with that commitment to the physical. Then it goes to what I was saying, being able to go through the monotony. Like I've talked to Michael Phelps and he says there's no way in the world he could keep his mind occupied for 2 straight days swimming out there. He would go insane. He couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. So there's that. But you know what? I think another reason I made it this time and didn't make it the 4 other times I tried, including when I was much, much younger, was I was in a state of awe. I was never in a state of awe before. It's all about me. I'm so strong and I'm so good and I'm so heroic and I'm going to make it. But when I got in my 60s, as we do as we get older, and I'm in my 70s now, and I tell you something, it's getting even better. But in my early 60s, I was in a state of deep appreciation of my team. I could just cry when I saw them up there. Bonnie never for 52 hours, 54 minutes left her perch. She would pee right off the side of the boat. She was not going to leave. She was like a soldier. My navigator, John Bartlett, never left the boat, never took a nap. And all of them, they were all part of my success. But I also was in awe of this beautiful blue planet we live on. I was not like that in my 20s. When I was out there this time, if I was coming in to take a short drink, you're allowed to come close to the boat, not touch the boat. I'd come in to take a short and I'd look up and I'd see 1 billion stars at night, or in the day I would see this, this blue surface that stretched out to forever. And I was like, I get to be part of this planet Earth in a real literally immersive way. So I think that was actually part of my success when I was older too.
And when you would face obstacles along the way, hiccups, issues, which there were plenty, how are you staying strong as you went over those speed bumps throughout that journey for sure? How did you do that?
I think most people, and I don't know about you if you feel this way with your success, but the road is going to be tough. If your ambitions are high, you're never going to get through and just say, it was just all just a bowl full of cherries. The whole thing. It's if you choose something that's difficult, and you have the courage to fail, you're going to come across bumps. And out there in the big epic ocean, as you say, plenty of hardships, plenty of unexpected bumps and turns. But I think that what you do is, I know what I did is, I made a contract with myself. In 2010, turning 60, when I said, I'm coming back to this, no one still has ever done it without a shark cage. I am going to sort of put on an imaginary steel cap over my mind that is going to say, no matter what happens, no matter what unexpected turn, of events, of weather or animals, or my own frailty, if a shoulder goes out, whatever it is, my mind is going to still be, I'm going to Florida. I'm going every stroke. I'm going to Florida, Cuba to Florida. Where are we going from? Cuba. Where are we going to? Florida. And I've got that so that it can't penetrate. Even the box jellyfish. I should have died that night. It was an anaphylactic shock. The central nervous system was coming under paralysis, but my mind kept saying, I can do it. I want to breathe. I want to stroke. Let's get over this. Let's go. And we did.
Great athletes like you talk about loving the grind, right? Loving the process, finding joy and beauty inside of that. Throughout that 52 hours, did you feel joy, excited? Like, did you feel that way throughout that experience?
I wouldn't say the word joy ever popped into my mind. No. As I said, I think there was awe. It's not all, despondent pain, even though it's a tough, grueling sport. There's a couple of light words with your teammates when you stop for a feeding or as I said, the joy of the universe, let's say. But I would say there's a deep pride. I am so proud. I wrote a memoir a few years ago called Find a Way. And in the back of it, and I'm very, very proud of those pages. It doesn't go back to the 70s. I didn't have a log of my training in the 70s. But for this comeback at the age of 60, so starting 2010, there's 2010, 11, 12, and 13, there's 4 years of every training swim, every 12-hour swim in a pool, every 14-hour swim in the ocean. What happened that day? Was I strong? What do I need to do? And when I look at those pages, I'm not sure, as I said before, I have respect for all kinds of endurance athletes and maybe especially my fellow swimmers. They do outrageous things, all year long, every year. But I'm not sure anyone has ever trained as hard and as long as those hours. So you say, do you find any joy during the 3 hours? But that is the icing at the end of the cake. As in all sports, it's about the training. When Roger Federer used to fall to his knees on the grass at Wimbledon and cry, it wasn't because he won that match. It wasn't even because he won the 7 matches of that Wimbledon. It was because nobody knows like he does. That's from age of 6. He's been on the court hitting thousands of backhands down the line, thousands. Nobody knows but he, what he put into it.
Yeah. The Find a Way. Man, Diana, I love that. I've talked to a lot of high performers in the world of sports, and we talk sometimes about greatness, right? And that at some level, that level of drive, some people would say, requires a bit of selfishness. I know you had an unbelievable team around you. You had a lot of people that helped you do what you did, no question about it. And you appreciate the heck out of them, which I love. Is that ever something that you felt, right? Your drive to do what you did it require a level of selfishness at some level in order to do that?
Sure. I don't know if selfishness is the right word. I think selfish to my mind connotes you don't care about anybody else. And I like to think myself a people person. I loved my team. I was almost like a mother to a lot of them. I knew their problems, their heartaches, their dreams. But when it came to this Cuba swim, Bonnie will tell you there was just no talking me out of it. There was no talking sense into me after the box jellyfish stings. Like, we cannot, she said, Diana, I almost watched you die that night. I was helpless. I don't want to be in that position again. Let's go swim somewhere else. And so I definitely was had the blinders on. And this is what I'm doing. Nobody can talk me out of it. But as I did get older, I listened more to ideas and ways to, manipulate. But I don't know if selfish is right, but certainly focused, seriously focused would have to be there, if you're pursuing something so big.
Yeah, and Diana, what comes up for me is maybe it was just self-commitment, right? This commitment to self and to this vision, this passion, this drive that you had inside of you, for sure.
Commitment's the best word. The commitment, and imagine now, I'll be 74 in a couple of months. So that swim was 10 years ago this September. We're up at the 10-year anniversary now. And I have retired from long distance swimming. It doesn't mean that I couldn't do more, but that was such the holy grail, that Cuba swim. That was such the big pie in the sky that it would be senseless for me to look at the globe, the blue globe, and say, oh, but what about the Sea of Japan? And what about, swims off the coast of Chile? Of course, there are, you said it in the very beginning, the earth is almost all water, so you could spend the rest of your life swimming this place and that place and this place. But I did a lot of that in my 20s. And once I achieved Cuba, I don't want to be only that marathon swimmer. I'm writing my first children's book right now. I have other things I want to do. Now, will any of them, let's take an absurd analogy, because I'm not comparing myself, trust me, to Serena Williams. But Serena retired a year ago. And I think we could, if she were with us right now in this discussion, she could say, look, I have a child I'm crazy about. I'm probably going to have more children. I have a husband I love. I have successful multi-million-dollar businesses. But does anything give her the high that she had playing as the best player in the world in front of thousands of people and a night match at the US Open? Probably not. Am I ever going to feel the high like I did walking up on that beach after 35 years of chasing that dream? Probably not. But does that mean that I don't still feel a sense of commitment to everything I can be? So I do. I live my life the same way as I did chasing that Cuba dream.
Why do you think you never stopped believing that you could do it? I mean, even when so many people close to you, and you just touched on that, told you, you're crazy. This is impossible. You can't do this. Why did you keep believing? Why did you not stop believing?
The bottom line of that is that in the 4 times I didn't make it, I never stopped at 51 hours, 48 hours, whatever the different times were. It was always Mother Nature on steroids that didn't allow us to get across. But I never stopped and put up my hand and said, I can't go another stroke. I'm done. This is more, I bit off more than I can chew with this one. Let's go somewhere easier. If I had quit myself, I would say it was too big for me. It was too big, but something else always thwarted, our crossings, which made me think, if I only could solve the box jellyfish, if we could only get across that Gulf Stream in a more intelligent navigational way, if we could only, and every expedition, whether you make it or not, people will talk to you about summiting Mount Everest and saying, I got there, and so I've done it, but if I ever do it again, I learned this and this and this and this. So we were learning with every outing we had. We came back with intel, and we did it better and better, But it was never me who gave up.
Yep, that's cool. I love it. If you hadn't achieved it, Diana, do you think you would have still felt fulfilled?
I was at a Brooklyn elementary school after the swim, and I was so honored. They dedicated their whole year to studying the Cuba swim, through immersive everything. Like their biology classes were about the box jellyfish, and their writing classes were about essays about this. So I was so honored to be there. And they had an 800-person auditorium, kind of chat with me. And they had picked, before I got there, one kid, 1st through 8th grade, to come up and ask a question. So the 3rd grader was named Joaquin, and he was cute as heck. He had a white shirt that was buttoned all the way up to here, and he had perfectly parted hair. And he came up and he said, well, I just wanted to know, because you made it on your 5th time, but if you had not made it, would you be trying again? And I said, well, Joaquin, I tell you, that's a hard question to answer, because do you know what the word moot means, M-O-O-T. Well, he didn't. But an older girl came up to the microphone and she told the whole school, moot means when something just doesn't pertain anymore. It doesn't matter. It's a question that isn't, in the right order anymore. And so I said, that's a moot question, Joaquin, because I did make it. So it's hard for me to pretend I didn't. He took a beat and he said, okay, but let's just say you didn't make it. Would you be trying again? And Sanjay Gupta said to me before the 5th try, he said, Diana, we have found you and your team and your quest, so inspiring. We've been covering you for 4 years now. We've gone out there and tried to come with you all the way across. We don't have the money, the resources, the time to keep covering you, doing this thing. And it seems to us, nobody is ever going to make this swim ever, and you are going to keep trying it until you die. So we're not going again. There was something in me that said, it's going to be done, and I'm going to do it. And there was no reason for me not to think that, because as I said, something else was beating me every time, not me.
What did the pursuit of a seemingly impossible goal, right? Like you just said, Sanjay Gupta, this is impossible. What did it unlock inside of you, Diana?
I don't think that swim did it. I think I've been that person since I've been a kid. I guess I don't remember it, and my mom's not with us anymore, but she reminds me that in 6th grade, I went to the little 6th grade graduation with my mom. This is in Florida. And I was wearing my little patent leather shoes, and Jimmy Woodruff was the school speaker, of the class speaker. And the principal came to me, and he bent down and he said, Diana, Jimmy Woodruff is in the bathroom. He's throwing his guts up. He can't do it. He's scared to death. He's not going to make it. Could you say a few words? And my mom grabbed me and pulled me over and said, you didn't prepare anything. All these people are here, the teachers and all the parents, and you're going to make a fool of yourself. And I said to the principal, well, how long were you looking for? Like 6 minutes, 10 minutes? He said, anything. Even if you gave us 2 minutes, anything. So I guess my mom says, I stood up and I said, well, we're only 11, so we can give ourselves a break. We're young and we've probably been doing our best, but I bet we really haven't. Now we have, I don't know, let's just say we all have 70 or 80 more years. We've got to get with it. We've got to have big dreams. We've got to solve all the problems of planet Earth. We've got to be the best we can be. Come on. And so my mom said to me that when we were home later, she said, I will never stop you from talking in front of a group again. This is what you were meant to do. So I'm just trying to make a funny point to say that I think I've always wanted to be everything I could be, whether it was the Cuba swim or whatever it is,
After you accomplished this unbelievable goal of yours, what did you do next? Wait, get me inside of, you had this huge goal, swim from Cuba. You tried 4 times. You made it the 5th time. You did it. What did you do the next day, the next month, the next year?
Honestly, right away, my life was like a rocket ship. This was a story, as we started saying in the very beginning of our conversation, Molly, that really touched people around the world. And I have found that it's not so much swimmers or even athletes or sports fans. It's more people who want to see that mantra, never, ever give up. You're not too old to chase your dreams. As a matter of fact, you're never too young to chase your dreams either. So I think that, that's why I was really on a blaze of a speaking circuit and writing the memoir. And so I was still very much immersed in it and all the passion of it for at least those 5 years, honestly, afterwards. It was just a rocket ship happening. But I will say that and I think this is true of any athlete. You don't have to be a world-class athlete. There are people who, let's say, were downhill skiers and really brave, and they were just good, never competed. They're just good. And all their friends and their family know that that's a woman or a man who just, is unafraid and goes fast and cuts fast. And then maybe you reach an age or you have an accident or you reach an age where you just can't take that risk anymore. So you're more of a slow little powder skier, or you don't ski at all anymore. People have to give up, high class tennis because they've gotten a little older and come down. And I think anytime someone is impassioned about a sport, and when you're young, you can do anything and you're brave and your body's ready to go. And as you get older, you have to reset your goals. And if you have to quit your sport, even if it's just the local softball league, if you have to quit that sport that you've loved, you've played softball every Sunday for 40 years, and now your knee is shot and you can't play anymore, you miss it. You miss the dedication, you miss the friends. And so the swimming, I will admit, I miss the pursuit of something that's that physical and that took that much gumption, and I probably will never chase a dream that big again.
And part of the question is that I often have seen, Diana, with great athletes is they focus on one achievement, and then after they're not sure what to do next. And so I always wonder, what does it look like? They hoist a trophy on Sunday. What does it look like on Monday? And to me, it's important that it's more than just that one moment. And that drive that you have in life is transferable to other areas of your life, which you appear to have transferred that drive to lots of incredible ways that you're influencing other people, from stages to, and we're going to dig into some of the incredible nonprofit work that you're doing too.
Yeah, well, like I quickly mentioned before, I'm writing my first children's book. So it's a chapter book for 8 to 12-year-olds. And it's not painful like being hit by a box jellyfish. But I have a very disciplined schedule about it. And I'm immersed in it. I'm reading dozens and dozens of chapter books for kids that age. I'm interviewing kids, who tell me, what they like. They're teaching me that sarcasm is very big at their age, and they like to use sarcasm. So I'm in this little world of 8 to 12-year-olds right now, all day long. It's like I'm thinking like they are. I'm imagining what their struggles are and what their, what their desires are. Again, it's not painful, but it takes discipline and it takes focus and it takes everyday work, if I want this to be a good book. So you could say that about, I've taken up tennis. I've always been in love with tennis. And are you a tennis player?
I've played tennis at Michigan State, Diane. I'm ready. I'm coming down. I'm going to come find you, girl. We're going to go hit some balls.
No way. You were a Spartan tennis player?
Amen, girl. You believe it.
Woo!
Now, it was a hot minute ago, though, girl. I mean, it was a hot minute ago, but you bet.
I'd like to get on the court for a hot minute with you sometime. So I grew up, as I told you before, in Fort Lauderdale. Chris Everett was 5 years younger than I was, but I was a huge fan and I followed her and knew her ever since. And then later, I became an announcer for tennis at the U.S. Open for USA Network and became friends, very good friends through the years with Billie Jean, Martina, and a number of the great players. And I've always been a super fan. Bonnie also is. We are super fans of everything that happens all year long in tennis. We've been to the French Open, been to Wimbledon, been everywhere.
Wow.
But I started playing at the ripe old age of 68. Now, I ask you, Molly, how good am I going to be? So
I think you can be pretty good knowing you, girl.
I don't know. There's a big ceiling above me, big, big, big. But I play 4 to 5 hours a day if I'm not working, and I can arrange that. But I'm into whatever potential I have. I want to reach that potential. So I'm constantly working on. I read tennis books when I go to sleep. I write in my tennis journal. I'm lucky because Bonnie is a beautiful player. Was a ranked player as a kid, so I have a better player to play with often. So that's a good thing. So here I am. I have a tennis training center in my garage. So I'm really not like swimming where it's the only thing and I'm going to be but at a very, dedicated level, I'm into the game of tennis right now.
Well, it's an unbelievable sport. I mean, they say, right? It's a sport for a lifetime, and it is. What's your weapon? I mean, you always is it your serve, forehand, volleys?
Backhand slice. I have a pretty,
nice.
I have to say, even if I had good 4 or 5 players here, I've got a good across the net like this.
Okay.
Tracy Austin said to me, you got a great slice. Just take it another step further. As you hit it, pretend you're sweeping across a marble table with your racket, and take that edge of your racket and sweep it right across a smooth marble table.
Yep.
Wind up with your hands out like this. And I get a lot of people with that slice. Now, I'm not really fleet of foot around the court, Molly. Yeah. Matter of fact, I came on the court the other day, and one of our doubles people said, "Hey, you guys, did you know it's the year of the tiger?" And I said, "Oh, no, it's the year of the rabbit." And I said, "Oh, I'm hoping to get to be more of a rabbit around the court this year." And she said, "Oh, Diana, don't worry. The year of the turtle is coming soon."
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. But you know what? She speaks the truth. I'm not moving any too quickly for those balls. So I have to have some weapons like anticipation, but I'm loving it. I'm in the tennis game. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. But what's so cool is you've transferred that drive that you've had as a kid. You've transferred your swimming and now tennis and children's books. And I've always believed that. I think that we can have drive in one area of our life and transfer it to another area of our life. All right, so I want to dig into it. Tell me a little bit about Everwalk. Tell me a little bit about this. Is awesome.
Bonnie and I started Everwalk 7 years ago, so we love the name. We're in love with our own, nonprofit Everwalk. And what happened was we finished the Cuba swim together, and we said we had all this joy swimming across the curvature of the earth. And I said joy, even though I wasn't feeling joy, but it was an overall feeling, the curvature of the earth and looking up at the blue sky, being involved in Mother Nature and doing this together. And we want to give this feeling to other people. And we thought about cycling, and swimming is too difficult to get a lot of people, but clearly walking is the best way to do it. And at first, I will admit, Bonnie's a badass athlete herself. Both of us thought, well, we'll develop a walking initiative, but that'll be for other people. We're too badass for walking. Come on, walking. But we walked with our group, Everwalk, with a bunch of people, hundreds plus people, from Boston up to Maine, and from Philly to DC, and from White Rock, Canada to Seattle. We did a bunch of long walks, and we continue them. We just walked Santa Fe, New Mexico. We did the Great Hudson Valley of New York, 7 days, 10 to 20 miles a day, depending on who you are. And it's brought us all those things. Matter of fact, we started asking ourselves questions. Do you not know your neighborhood or your city very well? Well, what's the answer? Walk. Are you feeling a lot of tension, a lot of family problems, a lot of work issues? You need to relieve some stress? Get out and walk under the trees. Jesse, you could find walking as the answer to so many things in your everyday life. So some days I walk with Bonnie, I walk with our Everwalk group. Our website is, I think, pretty exciting. And we have a lot of events, virtual and real, that we lead. But even just for me, sometimes I'll put on my headphones, listen to a book or a podcast, and I just need it. I'll go out for a couple of hours and just stroll around and look at the birds, and I come home and feel, I'm at peace now, So we're now fans of walking, and we're fans of all the answers that it brings to your life.
It's powerful. I had Brad Stevens on from the Celtics, and I said to Brad, what's a new habit that you've adopted that's changed your life in a positive way? And I mean, here's a guy, I'm not sure what I'm going to get. He says walking.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, wow, that's not what I thought Brad Stevens would say, but I couldn't agree with you more. How do people find out more about Everwalk? I
think just the website, everwalk.com. And we got, Bonnie and I answer all kinds of questions on there, and people post, on our socials, Everwalk socials. People post there every day, what little lending library they saw in a tree as they were walking today, what thoughts they had, and it's a community. Everwalk's a pretty solid community at this point. Thank you for asking about it.
Oh my gosh, no, it's fantastic. And Cuba Swim, the life story is being released in the fall on Netflix. This sounds unbelievable. When is this releasing? I mean, I'm pumped to check this.
Well, first of all, it blows my mind. I mean, how honored could I be that Annette Benning, the venerable and, by the way, lovely human being, we've gotten to know each other very well now. Annette Benning is playing me, and Jodie Foster is playing Bonnie. And I mean, we have to pinch ourselves. And so we've seen the movie. It's powerful. It's beautiful. And it really captures. And I mean, get this, Molly, the movie is called Nyad. I mean, just how lucky can I be, you know?
Wow. Nyad. Whew. That's good stuff. I can't wait to check that out. So I'm going to finish with rapid fire. Diana, I could talk to you forever. And by the way, I'm coming to hit some tennis balls with you, so we got to figure that out. That's going to be good.
Oh, the former Spartan gets on the court with the swimmer.
I'm going to get in there with my slice backhand, Diana. Attack the net on you, girl. I'm ready.
I want to see it.
I'm ready. What's your favorite book?
Well, you know, I mentioned endurance before, and I went to Antarctica. Bonnie and I did a vacation in Antarctica over the holidays, and many people on that boat were reading endurance because it's one of the famous survival stories of all human time. And I do think if it's not my very favorite book, it's certainly one of my top 5, Endurance.
I love it. What's the best advice you've ever received, and from whom?
I got to know Kwasi Mfume when he was the head of the NAACP, and he told me that his grandmother, when she was dying, said to him as a little boy, listen, every morning when you get up, in that little fleeting moment of you're kind of half asleep and half awake, I want you, before you jump out of bed and get into your big bad day, I want you to say to yourself, make this day worthwhile. And that's what I think. It's your decision as to what the definition of worthwhile is. But I want to not let any day go by that I just didn't even pay attention and it went by in the unconscious. I want to make it all worth my while. That's
so good. What advice would you give your younger self?
You ask that and people ask that, but it's absurd, isn't it? I mean, you know, what do you mean if I could step into a time travel machine and go back and talk to myself? All of us have to learn by experience. So I wish I weren't such a fool and such an egomaniac and so hurt from the sexual abuse I went through. I wish a lot of things, but you only learn, you know, but people don't give you wisdom. You earn wisdom day by day by day. So I could say now, I wish I had known everything I know now. And you know what? You and I could talk to each other 10 years from now, and I could say, oh, Molly, remember when I said I was 73 and I was so evolved, but now I'm 83, and I only wish I knew then what I know now. So I don't think you can go back and talk to your younger self.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's interesting. Is there a new habit that you've adopted recently that has improved your life?
You know, I would hate to admit it, but I've never been a great eater. Like, you know, I'm just not of that new athlete age where, you know, they know all about antioxidants and they, you know, just eat clean. You know, there's never a hamburger. There's never a donut. So I'm not a terrible junk eater, but lately I've finally been paying attention to greens and actually amounts, you know, of food and whatnot. So I think that's come into my life very late, that I'm eating better than I ever did.
I love it. So the show's called Game Changer. So one last question. Who's a game changer who inspires you and why?
Well, just right off the top of my head, I think of Michelle Obama. You know, when she says they go low, we go high, every day, you know, she changes people's lives and she's changed a lot of games herself. But there's also a man named John Cullen. He was at a speech I was giving years ago, and he told me that at that time he was an Iron Man, had gone cross country, you know, was just a strong, physically fit guy. And he told me that just recently when I met him, which I think was like eight years ago, let's just say arbitrarily, about 8 years ago, he said that morning he had woken up and his right finger was in a nonstop twitching. He couldn't stop it, his right index finger. Well, it turned out it was Parkinson's. It turned out just these few years later, he's having trouble taking his pants off, so somebody has to help him go to the toilet. He's having trouble walking. He has to take tiny little, he calls them Frankenstein steps, and he knows that Parkinson's is going to win. He watches himself debilitating, and he just says, I'm still me. I'm still here. I've still got my good brain, my sense of humor. I still care about people. And so how can you not admire John Cullen? He's a game changer.
He's a game changer. And so are you, Diana Nyad. This was fun. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed it too. I wanted to ask you so many questions, but I guess today was my day. We'll do it the other way around next time.
Let's do it. Let's do it. No, this was the way it needed to be. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Oh my gosh, this woman is amazing. I mean, the amount of takeaways I could rattle off right now is endless, really. A couple of my favorites, though. Number one, find a way. I mean, find a way. How great is that line? How great is that mindset? It's her book title, Find a Way. Diana's story, it's not about breaking a sports record. That's what's so cool about it. There's a much bigger reason why it captivated the world and why it has inspired millions of people. It's about what it means when you never give up, when you refuse to quit. When faced with obstacles and challenges, which we're all going to get hit with in life, we've got to find a way. I love how Diana talks about this. Number two, don't be a spectator in your own life. Don't be a spectator in your own life. Have you ever felt yourself slipping into a place where you feel a little bit stuck? Or another word for that, which most people don't really like to align with, is complacent. Have you ever gotten to a place where you're maybe just settling in a bit? It's like you're in the eddy of life, watching others pursue their goals and dreams or you're relegating yourself to the sideline of, by the way, your one and only life. Diana felt that in her life. And wow, what a powerful example she has set for all of us of stepping back into your life, reclaiming your dreams, living with no regrets. Number three, make this day worthwhile. What if we all started our day with one reminder to ourselves? Make this day worthwhile. Wouldn't you be more intentional? Wouldn't you be more engaged? Wouldn't you be more aware to ensure you're living fully? With this mindset, make this day worthwhile. The end of your day then becomes a bit of a benchmark. Did I make this day worthwhile? Thanks, as always, for listening to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There you can listen to previous episodes and leave us a review, which helps other people find out about the show. This episode was edited and sound designed by the team at Sound On Studios. You can find out more about their work at soundonsoundoff.com. Check it out. For more about me, visit mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be bold.